Hello, everybody. I am here in my favorite place near my home, and within one of my favorite places inside that favorite place. So I'm at the Botanical Gardens, and I'm at the moon pool in the Botanical Gardens. It's raining a little bit, as you may have seen, or might be able to hear. And I feel really lucky to be here because I may not get another chance to be in these gardens. And I think that the current situation has created an atmosphere in which I recognize the incredible preciousness of my life and of the lives of all the living beings. And somehow particularly the humans, because right now our world, the world of fictions that we live in, is changing dramatically. And I expect that many of those fictions are threadbare, and they will rip, and they will expose something behind them that, while I wouldn't refer to it as reality, because that's a really complex idea that I don't want to wrangle with philosophically at the moment, they will reveal something more like what's actually going on in and around us. So I think the layered fictions in which we have so long dwelt are going to erode, they'll be torn apart, and we will be privy to something more like what's actually going on. And that stuff behind the fictions is also going to transform right now. So it's not like we will see what had been dwelling behind the fictions we've become addicted and habituated to expect and participate in. We will see what's going on now. And so I'm very grateful to have found a way into the garden. For some reason, one of the large gates was just wide open. And I walked in. And I could be ejected at any time. I might even be charged with trespassing, conceivably. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but I'm willing to take the chance to see this garden one time right now, because the future is very uncertain. Extremely uncertain. And in times of great uncertainty, we're going to see both the worst and the best of our humanity. We will see people who raise the bar and who bring forth the incredible nobility of which we are capable as human beings. And we will see people who are terrified and panicked and predatory. And we will see people who simply intend to take advantage of the situation. My personal position is certainly with the angels, so to speak, with those who will bring forth the very best, and maybe even give birth to, situations. It's not as though we are containers and we contain these properties of good or evil, or kindness and generosity, or predation or greed. Situations and contexts transform us. We, because of the nature of the social animals we acquire a sense of role from the context as we understand it, and then most of us will enact those roles. Now, some of us are creative enough to know that we can play outside the lines and we can invent our own roles, and that we don't have to be slaves to the context at hand. And that's awesome. It's also not unreasonable for the vast majority of people to simply act out of habit and fear and concern, and to not embody the creativity that is possible for us. So although, like many of us, right, I feel joy when I see people acting in ways that are beautiful and loving and kind and noble and self-sacrificing. And I also see people acting and thinking in ways that are ignorant and dangerous, and misguided, I think, from my perspective, or even horrific. I recognize that essential variability is part of what it means to be human. I too have made horrible mistakes in my life. I have acted out of greed or ignorance or fear, or even, in some cases, unfortunately, I have abused powers that I acquired unexpectedly, right? After having been powerless for very long, when I unexpectedly acquired power, I have been in situations where I abused that power, to my great and lasting regret. And in other cases, when I had the power to positively affect something, I failed to live up to my own standards because I was frightened or concerned or vulnerable. Yeah, felt vulnerable. So however wise or intelligent or ignorant I might appear when I'm, composed and making my videos and writing and so on, please be assured that just like the vast majority of humans, I have experienced the full range, or much of the range anyway, of what it means to be human. I've made mistakes that I gravely regret. I've been mean, I've been selfish, I've been, all these things. So happy to be here right now and just see this place one more time. This little pool in the garden is meant, well, it was sort of engineered for the purpose of looking down into the water to see the sky. Yeah, like this. And particularly to see the moon at night. But since the gardens are closed right now, and they are closed at night, no one gets to use this pool for those purposes. But I have long known of various ways into the garden that have allowed me to come and observe the incredible beauty of the light on the water of this pool over many years. And this pool has taught me magical things I am enchanted by, about the relationship between light and water that I will never be able to put into words. And in fact, the pool has enchanted a few people that I've brought to visit it, to the degree that a couple of them had emergence experiences. So me and the water and the light, we go way back. There's an author whose name is Nicholas Nassim Taleb. And while he is somewhat annoying in the fact that he's kind of constantly blowing his own horn, talking about how intelligent and insightful and filled with foresight and so on he has been, which is, we could do without that. He's smart enough that he doesn't need to ring that bell 17 times in a chapter. But he wrote a book some time ago called The Black Swan, about the impact of wildly unpredictable events, or very significant events that were unpredictable, and how we can begin to think about and relate with them in ways that are more intelligent and use them in our planning, in our thinking, in our economic policy. He's an economist. And what we're experiencing right now, some people would say, is a black swan. Right? We're experiencing a radical, destabilizing, unexpected event. But even though the specific aspect of the event, the specific type of event was unforeseen, many of us have long been aware that the humans are living in a vast web of fictions that are eventually going to break and reveal to our species and our nations and our societies and our families that nature, the living world upon which we depend and from which our own lives emerge as expressions, cannot simply be obliterated endlessly for the sake of supplying us with luxuries and pastimes and restaurants, toilet paper. So many of us have long realized that it's only a matter of time until the fabric of the fictions in which we make our beds rips through, and that when that happens, there will be catastrophes and things will be very grim. And some people think that this is a black swan that we're experiencing now. And though I hope to be proven wrong, I disagree. In the sense that while this is an unpredicted and catastrophic event, I think it's different. I think it's different from a single event. And a number of people that I've spoken with believe that this event will sort of blow over, right? We will get past this, quote unquote. Unfortunately, I strongly suspect, and am inclined to suggest, that rather than a black swan, what we are seeing here is the feather of a black swan that has presently landed in the hands of humanity, if we imagine humanity to be a person. And that person that I analogize here as humanity does not realize that that feather doesn't portend a single bird. It portends a flock of birds. I would suggest that it's very likely that what we will see is a cascade of unexpected catastrophic events, and that the event that we're currently experiencing might later be understood as the beginning of an epoch or an era of sudden, unexpected transformations. There are a variety of reasons why I think this is likely, and it's certainly not my goal to frighten or, cause anxiety. But whether or not I'm correct, the fact that the humans, our species, has long been profoundly abusing our relationship with our own origin, and this would be analogous to like your pinky trying to cut off your head because it thinks it's just so powerful that it deserves to rule the body, right? And nature is not here for us to rule it or measure it. Nature is the origin of our own form of life, our health, our intelligence, our awareness, our potentials for survival. So if you can imagine some malignant teenager in a parable who drugs his mom and then surgically removes her organs and sells those organs on the black market to buy, heroin and, Ferraris and jewelry and other things I'll here not name. And as, you know, he kind of keeps her alive, just barely. And his father is out fighting a war, for example, or, you know, working to pay the bills. And every once in a while his father calls home and the teenager says, you know, well, mom's okay, she can't come to the phone right now. And eventually the father becomes suspicious and comes home. In this parable, in which the humans represent the teenager and the earth represents the mother, and the forces that underlie nature itself represent the father, which could indeed include the son. When the dad comes home, things are going to go very poorly for that teenage boy, to put it mildly. And if he has killed his mother, or even if he has so severely injured her that she will not be able to walk and recover, then things are going to go extremely badly for that teenage boy, particularly if he happened to have been adopted. So this is just a hyperbolic, you know, it's a hyperbole, it's a parable. However, the actions of our species as a whole and of our societies, and particularly of corporations, which are not human beings, they themselves are fictions, our societies are fictions, our nations are fictions. So when you got a bunch of fictions wiping out things that actually matter and from which our own lives and well-being and health emerge, from which the potential for our own intelligence emerges, when you have something that's just obliterating that stuff wholesale day in and day out and doubling down on the damage every chance it gets, to expect there to be no repercussions is the act of an idiot. Someone who's completely insane in the sense of living in a world that doesn't actually exist, right? Living in an idea, in a fantasy of power and the capacity to continue a long reign of abuse and even torture without consequence. That's not going to happen. Whether this particular event is the beginning of a cascade of consequences, as I expect it will be, or whether this is a foreshadowing of a future cascade of consequences, you can be absolutely certain the consequences are in the mail. Our people in our modern, you know, in perhaps the last 150 to 200 years, have obliterated the foundations on which the health and homeostasis, in other words, the capacity to maintain atmospheric stability and temperate stability in the planet, we have it's like, I don't know, there's another analogy that comes to mind. You can imagine somebody climbing a mountain who every time he climbs says, I don't need this rope, and just keeps making a little cut in the rope that he's hanging from on the face of the cliff, right? And you could say, well, maybe he's a good free climber. Sure, but in this case he needs the rope. Yeah. That's kind of what's been going on. And that rope is thoroughly frayed at this point. And if you put a little pressure on it, it's going to break. I personally, though I'm fervently opposed to the activities of corporations, our nations and societies, and particularly the nations that have invested in war and making products instead of infrastructure and establishing intelligent societies in which we could have roles that were truly meaningful, rather than having the roles that most of us have now as slaves to functions, as slaves to factories, as slaves that produce goods and products, as slaves that produce entertainment. I think we could have unimaginably beautiful roles, and I think we were born to be hungry and thirsty for those roles, unfortunately, our societies counterfeit them, right, and sell us back these these sort of costumes. Yeah. But within our spirits, there is the hunger for that authentic, original humanity that is our nature, our true nature, that each of us carries a unique version of. And in a situation like the one that we're about to inhabit, we will have the potential to live adventures that matter, rather than simply to continue to reinforce the web of fictions that I think is about to crumble. It's my perspective that human beings represent one of the most expensive investments the living world ever made, and that those investments, which were staggeringly profound over vast periods of time, were purposeful. Nature achieves something new in our form of life. And unfortunately, instead of embodying the potentials that were the gift of our uplift, if you want to call it that, we became confused by the powers we acquired, and we took a devastating turn away from the faculties and potentials that are native to our humanity. And that's unfortunate. In turning away from the most beautiful and profound aspects of our humanity toward things that are trivial and superficial, we became a weapon. And that weapon was at once directed against ourselves and the foundations upon which our survival and intelligence and nobility depend. And while there have always been individual people and even groups who have managed to recover something of our original authentic humanity and nobility and potential for intelligence and creativity and beauty, the overwhelming force of the contexts in which we are embedded renders many of those contributions statistically trivial, right? It's unclear to me what will happen. And if someone asks me, well, what do you think the priority should be? I think the fundamental priority should be, as it always should have been, that we invest the potential that we've acquired for radical transformation over time, what we refer to as progress, most of what's referred to with that word is actually regress. In other words, it is the forgetting of our humanity, our origins, our non-ordinary faculties of participation in nature, our capacities for what I'll refer to as superfunction. We've misinvested those, and we've misapprehended them. We've framed them in the wrong functions and purposes. So I think what is crucially important is that we establish even very small seeds of highly intelligent, proactive societies, right? Now, humans tend to function best in small, very tightly knit groups, and the current situation may present opportunities for those pods, as I refer to them, after the idea of a pod of dolphins or whales, who are similar creatures in that they also, many of the social mammals, right, are like this. They function best in small, tightly knit groups in which each person or each member's unique skills and abilities radically amplify the skills, opportunities, protections, and abilities of the group. This, I think, is the nature of our humanity, and it's something that our current situation may call us back to and may foment. But my simple belief is that we need to pursue with the same fervent urgency the formation of intelligent human societies capable of understanding the context, the natural context from which we arise and in which we are immersed, and responding intelligently to the dangers and opportunities that the present circumstances place before us. And we need to do this with great urgency. Nations are a prehistoric and nonsensical idea. People are arguing over whether there should be democracy or communism when they should be arguing about how to build small, self-sufficient societies that can link together to accomplish things that would otherwise be impossible. And I don't mean building jet fighters. I mean establishing platforms that can lift us into actually meaningful roles in societies that are intelligent, trustworthy, and capable of at least modestly ethical behavior. Something like that. So this is my hope, that we may have the opportunity here to do something like this. And I have developed models of frameworks, technological frameworks, and relational frameworks that would support these possibilities. I'm not a pioneer. I learned what I know about human intelligence and our potentials simply from observing human beings and animals and nature. Humans naturally form pods. We have all of these natural faculties and abilities that our present nations and societies take advantage of and sell us back broken versions of, right? Which we then sort of buy into and perpetuate and become habituated to live in. Since all of our habits are going to be, many of them anyway, are going to be shattered at this point, that's a perfect opportunity to do something new together, something we believe in, something that matters, something that with the potential to both justify the struggles of our ancestors and the astonishing investments of nature, and something that our grandchildren might look upon with pride and wonder, enthusiasm, joy, and hope. So these are some of my thoughts today from here in the Botanical Gardens, where I'm very lucky to have one more visit. I'm so grateful for the chance to share these thoughts with you today. And I want you to know that no matter what the future holds, there is something behind the ordinary appearances that is accessible to our minds and to our spirit. And no matter what may come, that relationship is sacred. And though it may be temporarily occluded, It will not fade. All blessings to you. May you and those you love and the living world be healthy and well and blessed. Bye-bye for now.